Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring the beautifully complex and honestly, intensely mystical theology of Vladimir Lossky. We're talking about a thinker who took the deep, ancient traditions of Eastern Orthodoxy and brought them straight into the heart of 20th century Western academia. It's a fascinating journey that blends really rigorous philosophy with the deepest forms of spiritual prayer. But first, imagine trying to understand a God who is fundamentally incomprehensible. That poses the ultimate paradox that Lossky actually dedicated his entire life to solving. How can limited, everyday humans possibly interact with an infinite creator? I mean, if God is truly boundless and totally beyond human logic, how do we even begin to talk about him, let alone experience him? That is the massive question at the center of everything we're looking at today. To conquer this dense philosophy without getting lost, we're going to follow 5 quick steps. The exile of Vladimir Lossky, the path of apatheticism, divine essence and energies, the Trinity and the person, and finally, theology, mysticism, and deification. Step 1. The exile of Vladimir Lossky, a bridge between East and West. You see, Lossky's groundbreaking theology wasn't born in some quiet, comfortable library. It was forged directly out of his dramatically turbulent life as an exile. He was born in 1903 to a Russian philosophy professor, but his whole world was turned upside down during the Russian Revolution. In 1922, after witnessing the execution of Metropolitan Benjamin, he and his family were actually exiled by the Soviets. That intense trauma forced him westward. He studied in Prague, eventually made his way to Paris, graduated from the Sorbonne in 1927, and by the time he passed away in 1958, he had become this incredible bridge, literally bringing the deep mysticism of Eastern Orthodoxy into direct, vigorous dialogue with the academic rigor of the West. Our source text today maps out exactly how this experience of exile influenced his work. Living as a Russian exile in France, Lossky saw a really stark contrast between Western intellectualism and the contemplative, image-rich theology of the East. He absolutely championed the mystical dimension that he felt Western traditions had lost after the Great Schism. And his entire theological framework? Well, it rests on 4 central axes. Whenever you read Lossky, you'll find these are the pillars holding up the whole structure. The distinction of divine energies, the joint mission of the Son and the Spirit, a highly relational concept of the person, and the absolute necessity of apophaticism. So let's deconstruct these so you can really master them. Step 2. The path of apophaticism, the unknowable God. So apophaticism. Yes, it's a huge, somewhat clunky academic word, but the idea is actually a humbling realization that our human language will always fall short of describing the divine reality. Lossky argued that the genius of Eastern mystical theology is its inherently apophatic character. It means defining God by what he is not, rather than what he is. Why? Because he's radically beyond anything our limited, created minds can wrap around. Now, Lossky was super careful to separate his apathetic Christian views from thinkers like Plotinus and the Neoplatonists. While they shared some vocabulary, Lossky argued that Neoplatonism essentially proposed a pantheism of emanations, where the universe is kind of just an overflowing of the divine. But Lossky strictly maintained absolute divine transcendence. For him, God isn't just an emanation bleeding into the universe. He sits entirely beyond it. He is a truly personal God who creates out of absolute nothingness. Step 3. Divine essence and energies, the sun analogy. This is the primary mechanism Lossky uses to explain how we actually interact with a radically unknowable God, bringing us to the concept of ousia. Think of ousia like the burning core of the sun. It is God's pure essence. Lossky calls it a hyperbeing. It is completely incomprehensible and entirely beyond human perception. It's literally impossible for us to touch or comprehend this essence without being destroyed. It just exists beyond everything. But here is the really beautiful contrast. While we can't touch the core of the sun, we can absolutely feel its heat and its light, right? Well, these are the divine energies. This is how the unknowable God makes himself known. These energies aren't created things. They are God himself reaching out to us as uncreated grace. It is through these specific energies that humans can actually experience the divine, and it's these energies that sanctify and ultimately deify us. Step 4. The Trinity and the person. Renouncing the will. Let's explore how this unknowable God exists in himself and what it means for our own concept of personhood. Lossky argued that Western theology often missed this deeply spiritual notion of hypostasis. While ousia is the shared essence, hypostasis refers to existence, specifically personal existence. For Lossky, true personhood isn't about rugged individualism or constantly asserting yourself against others, not at all. It's fundamentally found in selfless relationship and the renunciation of one's own will. To be a true person is to exist in loving relation to another. He maps this out brilliantly onto the Trinity, three distinct hypostases sharing one uncreated ousia. The Father is the infinite source and origin. The Son is the Logos, the manifest perfection begotten of the Father, and the Holy Spirit is the uncreated life and light proceeding from the Father. Drawing on ancient writers like Irenaeus, Lossky describes the Son and the Spirit as the two hands of the Father, reaching right down into creation to shape it and save it. Step 5. Theology, mysticism, and deification, the final destination. So where do all these dense academic terms actually lead us? Well, for Lossky, theology is totally useless if it remains just a mental puzzle. The end goal of human life is theosis, literally being transformed and deified by participating in God's uncreated energies. It's not about becoming God in essence, but becoming perfectly united with Him by grace. He argues the state of sanctification is far, far superior to mere intellectual knowledge or gnosis. You don't just learn facts about God, you become infused with His life. Which leads right to his ultimate thesis. Dogma and mysticism are absolutely inseparable. You just can't have one with the other. You can't have true theology without a life of deep, contemplative prayer. The dogma gives crucial structure to the mysticism, and the mysticism breathes life right back into the dogma. They feed each other. There's this incredibly powerful ancient quote from Evagrius Ponticus that Lossky uses to completely redefine what it means to be a theologian. In Lossky's view, you aren't a theologian just because you have a fancy degree from Paris or because you've read a mountain of books. You are a theologian if you have pure prayer. True knowledge of God comes from a direct, prayerful encounter. We leave you with this final, profound thought from today's explainer. Vladimir Lossky reminds us that the pursuit of understanding God isn't a spectator sport. If true knowledge of the divine actually requires mystical participation, if dogma and prayer are inherently inseparable, how might that change the way you seek the truth? Will you settle for just studying the divine from a safe distance, or will you step into the light of those energies and let it completely transform you?